This episode is brought to you by my favorite mobile puzzle game, Best Fiends. I can't tell you guys enough about this game. I adore this game. Not only is it bright and colorful with great graphics, but it's a fun way to connect with friends while still exercising that gray matter. There are all these adorable characters that you collect. My new favorite is Hammond, a cute and sassy ladybug. Her plus-size shaped bomb power is the bomb. Another fun thing about this game is that you earn these keys to open locked doors that hold extra items that you can use to upgrade and evolve your fiends. I've connected to my Facebook account so that I can play with my friends and share gifts with them, and brag a little bit, too, when I pass them. Guys, no internet is needed to play the game, so no Wi-Fi, no problem. You can play anytime, anywhere. I can play as much as I like or as little as time allows. It's perfect for me. And as a bonus, I'm giving my brain some non-crime stimulation. And believe me, I need it. And since you all listen to crime shows, you do too. So join me and my friends, or should I say, fiends, and engage your brain with fun puzzles and collect tons of cute characters. Trust me, with over 100 million downloads, this 5-star rated mobile puzzle game is a must-play. Download Best Fiends free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends. This episode contains explicit and adult content. Listener discretion is advised. All cases and stories covered by this podcast are true stories involving real people. The opinions of the host and any interviewees are simply that, opinions. The credibility of any witnesses and what they say is to be determined by the listener. Everyone is presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. On September 8th, 37 years ago, a young woman left her home in the very early morning to walk the 1.5 kilometers from her townhouse to her workplace. She needed to walk to work that day because the car was in the shop. She almost made it, but she was violently abducted just a few meters from the safety of the bakery doors. This is where our story began. This is episode 34, 4 Men, an update to missing Mary Hammond. And this is your host, Genevieve Germain. Just a few items about this podcast. True Crime Real Time is a bi-weekly podcast covering missing persons and unsolved murders. We're available across many platforms such as Castbox, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, and many others. Links, information, and pictures relating to the cases or stories we cover can be found on our website at www.truecrimerealtimepod.com or on our Instagram account or on our Facebook page. The links to Instagram, our website, and our Facebook page can be found on the podcast channel description. Photos, as well as any other information, are generally posted at the same time as when the episode is published. Now back to the show. In April and May of 2019, we produced a 2-part series into the disappearance of 25-year-old Brantford, Ontario woman Mary Hammond, who disappeared in 1983. Her case is the oldest open unsolved case in Brantford. Mary was a down-to-earth, fun young woman with her whole life ahead of her. Her and her boyfriend of 4 years, Larry, had just gotten married in May of that year. For this episode, we had the opportunity to speak with Mary's niece, Brenda. Here she is describing a little bit more about who Mary was.
She was very fun. I remember I only knew her when I was a kid. I do remember her being around, and she was always happy, and she was always fun. She'd always play with us. I found a picture today of her playing table tennis with Sharon, my sister, and me in the background, and we're all wearing halter tops. It was the 70s, so it was quite a long time ago. It was in the summer. But yeah, she was just really fun, and she made stuffed animals for us once where we all had our own one. I had a dolphin, and Christine, my other sister, had a hippopotamus, and my oldest sister, Sharon, who was pretty close in age to her, the closest, she had a lion that Mary had made, and she had sewed them all, and they were really big stuffed animals. And we had those all through our teen years. So yeah, that's the main thing that I remember about her when she visited, was just having lots of fun. She was really tough because she had three older brothers. So my dad being one of them, and my mom always tells stories about her, how she used to wrestle them to the ground. And she was kind of like a tomboy. So she got along well with my older sister because she was as well. She was really tall. She was just very well built, like she was athletic.
Larry was working at Massey Ferguson at the time. Massey Ferguson is an American manufacturer of farm equipment. They employed a lot of people in the 1980s in Brantford. The union was looking to strike at the Toronto and Brantford plants. Their contract had just expired on the 1st of September, so they were negotiating new terms. If an agreement could not be made by September 8th, they were looking to go on strike in those plants. The union at the time had offered the company to extend its current contract that had just expired for another year, and they were hopeful that this offer would have been accepted, which ultimately it had not been. A large amount of Massey Ferguson workers, including Larry, had met at a local pub on Wednesday, September 7th, to hopefully celebrate the announcement that the strike would be avoided. While out, as told by family members, Larry had discussed that his car was in the shop and that Mary needed to get up early to walk to work, her route taking her past the Massey Ferguson plant.
The night before she disappeared, Larry had gone out to a bar, and they were celebrating that they had just averted the strike, and they were all out celebrating, out for a drink at a bar. And apparently Larry didn't drink, so he wasn't having one, but he was just with his friends celebrating. And from what my mom told me, he had mentioned something about it, that Mary was going to be walking to work the next morning because their car was in the shop. My mom has always said from day one that it was somebody that was there that overheard it, or somebody that they knew that possibly worked at Massey Ferguson, or even somebody that was in the bar that overheard it, or, it could have been anything, or it could have been just somebody that knew them and knew that where she would be and which way she would walk and what time she would be getting there.
Meanwhile, Mary was preparing for the next day. She had spoken to her mom that evening and had made plans to get together with her the following day after work in order to can tomatoes. The next morning, this is the 8th, Mary was up early and had left her townhouse on Elgin Street at 3:30 a.m. to go to work. Mary was a very punctual person, so even though this walk would only take her 15 to 20 minutes, she ensured she left with enough time to get to work at least a few minutes early. So just before 4 a.m., two of Mary's co-workers noticed a brown and tan 1974 to 1978 pickup truck. It had California side mirrors and painted bumpers. It was possibly a Ford. The truck was parked in the back of the bakery. Neither one of these individuals had seen this truck in the lot before this day. The vehicle was either idling or only had the ignition turned. Only one of the round headlights was working. The truck then left abruptly at 4 a.m. When Mary didn't arrive a little bit before 4, her coworkers started to become concerned. Mary was very punctual, so this was really out of character for her. By 4:03 a.m., when she still hadn't arrived, a coworker called her home to see if she was ill or if she was just running a few minutes late. They spoke to Larry, who had informed them that she left the home at 3:30, so likely she'd be there in a very short time. But by 4:15 a.m., Mary still hadn't arrived, and the coworker called her husband Larry once again, telling him that Mary still didn't arrive. At this, Larry got out of bed, got dressed, and walked the usual route that Mary would have walked to go to work. At one point, he was able to follow her footprints until they stopped where she started to cross the train tracks in a large field leading up to the rear of the bakery. He then walked around to the front of the bakery, borrowed one of the workers' cars, and drove in and around the area to see if she was anywhere, and of course, she was not found. At this point, law enforcement was called to report Mary missing. Law enforcement arrived on scene between 5:32 a.m. and 5:45 a.m. Initial inspections indicated clearly that foul play was involved. There was one confined crime scene which was cordoned off. It was 15 meters or 50 feet from Park Road North, which is Wayne Gretzky Parkway, and 137 meters or 150 yards from the rear of the bakery. In this area, strewn in the field, law enforcement found parts of Mary's lunch, a partially eaten apple, one white ankle sock. There were other items of clothing found at this location. However, law enforcement would not provide additional details as to what these other items of clothing were. When Mary left home that morning, she was wearing blue jeans, a blue and mauve lumberjacket, white Adidas running shoes with the silver stripe, and a yellow t-shirt that said, "Don't touch these knobs, I'm perfectly adjusted." Additionally, a small amount of blood was found at 2 separate locations between North Park Road and Morton Avenue. At the time, they were only able to confirm that at least one of the blood spots had the same blood type as Mary. Later, they would compare the blood sample to one of Mary's brothers. Law enforcement would not confirm if the DNA test concluded that it was Mary's DNA or Mary's blood. However, a Hamilton Spectator source indicated that it was confirmed to be Mary's DNA. Is it possible that some of the blood found could be that of one of the assailants? Mary was strong and athletic, and fairly tall at 5'10". She would have put up a fight. In fact, we know there was a struggle, as some of her clothing were found on site, including one of her socks. At the time of her disappearance, her case was all over the local news, and many land, water, and air searches were conducted by family and friends, by the Brantford Police Services, and by the Ontario Provincial Police. However, the search resulted in no leads. Larry had wanted the police to focus on finding Mary, and he knew that he would need to be ruled out. So he voluntarily took a polygraph examination, which he passed. And additionally, he was confirmed to be at home at the time of her disappearance. Even the description of the mysterious truck parked at the rear of the bakery, which abruptly left at 4 a.m., went without being identified. Law enforcement wanted to turn over any possible stone in this investigation, and had even sent the 2 bakery co-workers who had seen the pickup truck to undergo hypnosis in the hopes that they would remember additional details. They recalled either seeing 2 or 3 individuals in the truck, but other than that, there was no additional information to be had. After exhausting all possible leads, the case became cold. It was looked at every few years with new eyes, and in 2003, samples of DNA from Mary's brother was obtained to confirm the 2 small blood areas found in the field. But it wouldn't be until 2012 and a deathbed tip that the case would be reopened. Based on the information provided, investigators were able to obtain a search warrant for an older building at 143 Market Street. This building has been turned into apartments. There are between 7 to 9 apartments within the structure. The forensic unit spent about a week on location. Numerous items were taken from the building for testing. Walls and floorboards were removed, and cadaver dogs were brought in to search, but they didn't alert on any scent, and no human remains were found. It wouldn't be much longer before the case would grow cold once again. Mary's family asks,
What the hell did they find in there, and did any of it go anywhere? Obviously it didn't, because they never said anything about it after that week, but what were they looking for? What was the tip? None of that has been shared with us.
Mary's family has expressed that they have had little communication or updates from law enforcement in the past 37 years. So it came as a shock to them when the Brantford Police Services released 4 black and white security camera footage of 4 men they advised may have information into the disappearance of Mary Hammond.
We're all pretty shocked because there hasn't been one article, they haven't been mentioned in one article before yesterday. And he has all the original stories, so he's been kind of doing updates and stuff like that. But I got a message from him yesterday just saying that there was a story being released, and I checked it out on the website and found it, and immediately called my mother and read it to her, and we just couldn't believe it because we've never heard any mention of this. And even any suspects, there's never been any mention of any suspects in any article through the years. So it was very shocking yesterday to find that out, and just to see even what it's about, because the report that was on TV earlier tonight on the news, they showed a story about it, and they said They said something about them not being suspects, but just being people that they want to talk to. So it's just very strange for us to be seeing this right now, all this time later. Like, we want to find things out, but it's like, when do they know this?
According to the Brantford police, information and tips gathered over the last 37 years have led them to believe that the 4 men in the photos that were released may be able to provide additional information into Mary's case, and they're hoping that the public will help in identifying these 4 people. Copies of the photos will be posted on all social media sites, as well as the podcast webpage. The photos appear to be security camera footage and all appear to be date stamped as October 31st, 1983, with a timestamp of 1438. That's 2:38 p.m. The men appear to range in age from mid-20s to mid-50s, meaning that they would likely currently be between 60 and 80 years of age. Law enforcement believed that these individuals had ties to the Hungarian, Ukrainian, Bosnian, and Polish communities at the time of Mary's disappearance. Law enforcement are not naming any of the individuals as suspects. Rather, they indicate that they only want to speak to these people in order to determine if they have additional information to provide. Brantford police are asking anyone who may be able to identify those in the pictures to contact them. Anyone with information regarding Mary Hammond's disappearance is asked to contact a tip line at 519-756-0113, extension 2800, to leave a voicemail message for investigators, or by email at hammond.disappearance@police.brantford.ontario.ca. Anyone who wishes to remain anonymous, of course, they're asked to contact the Brantford Crime Stoppers at 519-750-8477 or 1-800-222-TIPS. Alternatively, a web tip can also be submitted online, and all of that information will be in the show notes for easy access. And as a closing note, here's a message from Mary's family asking for anybody to come forward with information.
If anybody knew anything, even just a small, tiny detail about Mary's disappearance, even about that time period, if they had seen anything around that time period, anything suspicious, any kind of evidence, anybody who was at the bar the night before that might have overheard something. She was a lot of things to a lot of people. She was my aunt. She was Larry's wife. She was a daughter. She was a sister to a couple of brothers. We have our memories of her, but it's kind of tarnished by this whole unknown entity out there. I just encourage anybody to speak up and report even the smallest detail.
This brings us to the end of today's episode on Missing Mary Hammond's update. I hope you'll join me in another week as we discuss our next case. Thank you and have a good night. Hi there, you feel like supporting the show? If you want to listen to exclusive episodes, ad-free and early release episodes, head over to patreon.com. That's patreon.com. There are several different options ranging from armchair detective to co-producer. The link is in the description. I would also like to thank all of those of you who've taken the time to leave me a positive review. I really appreciate all of your support. Make sure you check us out at truecrimerealtimepod.com to read the true crime article on this episode, as well as see the accompanying photos. If you have questions, comments, or case suggestions, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at truecrimerealtimepod@gmail.com or complete the case submission form on our website. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a good rating and leave us a review. This will help our reach and bring more attention to the cases we cover. Ugh. Are you guys still listening? Do you guys actually listen to this? If you do, I'm not sure why. If you do, I'm not sure why. So I've been thinking about going to get a snack, but it's like 1:30 in the morning. I probably shouldn't eat something, but I'm still awake, so I kind of want to. I just finished editing everything for this episode, and now I'm just doing my little extra bit here where I usually give you some extra information if I have it, or I talk about what's going on or the struggles I'm having with getting information, or I'm asking you guys for help, or the usual. But that being said, I don't really... Oh, I'm so sorry. That was really annoying. I don't really have extra information for this case because we covered a lot of the information already in the very first 2 episodes, which one day I hope to redo the audio on, which I haven't gotten around to it because listen, I'm amateur now as an independent podcast. I'm not even part of my network anymore, so I'm looking for a new network, but that was by choice, by the way, just because I didn't really like the new contract that needed to be signed. So I'm super independent right now. I'm extra independent. Anyway, I got off topic, but I don't really have extra information for this case other than what a shocker for these photos to come out when they did. Coincidentally, there's one of the people that wrote a lot of the articles in 2012 when the case was reopened. She worked for the Brantford Expositor. She doesn't work there anymore, but her boyfriend does, and he's been working a lot with Brenda, which is Mary's niece, to get in contact with law enforcement, and she'd sent over quite a bit of very extensive questions, just unanswered questions, and we have a little bit of a snippet of it today, but there are quite a bit, and namely around the DNA, namely around the truck, and obviously there's some other major big ones were asked that she's asking, which makes sense. But, those questions have gone unanswered, and I think we all met in July. We were social distancing, guys, don't worry, more than 6 feet apart, and we all had our masks. But we went to visit the location where, she was abducted from, and took some photos there. But we took some photos there, so those will be online as well. And I think it was just a big shock today that those pictures came out, and I think that they've had those for a very long time, and probably at this point they're like, you know what, maybe somebody can help us with this, because what happens is as I'm trying to think, where would have security footage in 1983? Residents wouldn't have had that at that time. What kind of buildings would have it? Massey Ferguson probably at the time, but where else? And I'm wondering what kind of security cameras it was, because CCTV wasn't out until maybe it was close to that time. But more than likely it was one of those, I forget what the name brand is, but basically they kind of just like to take pictures. It's not like a video, and it's not closed. It's not CCTV. It was something else. Shoot, I just did a bunch of research on it for a writing project I'm doing. on security cameras. Well, the writing project isn't security cameras, but I had to do research on security cameras because some of the writing project that I'm doing took place in the 80s. Anyway, so the point was to that, where do you guys think would have security cameras in 1983? I'm just trying to, I mean, obviously banks, but that didn't look like a bank to me. I mean, maybe it was. I don't know. You guys take a look. You guys let me know. Take a good look at those pictures, because I've been staring at them, trying to see if I can find anything about what the poses can tell you about the people, what the background can tell you about the people. Am I right about the date stamp? I'm pretty sure I am, but I've been wrong many, many times, and I have really bad eyesight, so take a look at that. I'm going to post them all over the social media, so you're going to comment wherever you go. But I want to tell you guys, I get a lot of people kind of keep joining the group on Facebook, the podcast group. You guys don't talk. It's like trying to pull teeth to get you to talk. That's a place where you can go and you can share information and that. So I'm challenging you all to go in after I post the pictures and comment on it, even if it's just to say hello to your other fellow people on there. So you do that. So the other thing I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to have an explanation to you about Pamela Harris. Okay, I know, guys. Listen, I think the last couple of times you've heard me blather and waffle on like this, and this little extra bit that I'm not going to edit out. I keep telling you, okay, next time we're going to talk about Pamela Harris. And lo and behold, next time we don't. But for very good reason, okay? I have good reason. So first and foremost, I was waiting. I thought, let me get, one, I wanted additional information, which I did get some. And two, I was waiting for my questions to be answered from the Waterloo Regional Police, which, by the way, still have gone unanswered. So, while I was waiting for me to potentially get a response to my questions, I thought, well, I still have the update to do for Monica, and it was important to me to get out there. I think I let enough time go by, because it was a very sensitive topic for her family, and I didn't want to pressure them either, and I didn't want to, put them out and stuff, but I also wanted to make sure to get her story out there again, because there were some updates to it, and it's still open, and they're still looking for her murderer. So that is that. So that was why I did that one at that point. And then this one was a shocker, because I was already planning on doing an update. I was just waiting a bit because Mary's niece is working a lot with Vince at the Brantford Expositor, and he's got connections with he used to work in Crime Beat, I guess it's called. So he dealt a lot with the Brantford Police Services. So he's got that relationship, and so I was just going to wait a bit until he's had some of the information back from the police, and then we were going to touch base, or I was going to touch base anyways, and then see what was going on so we can do an update episode. And we all met in July, and we went to the crime scene, where she was abducted, and we took some photos and we talked about it. But all of a sudden, law enforcement releases these multiple shots of these 4 individuals, multiple security camera shots on the 37-year anniversary of her disappearance. They did that the day before yesterday. She disappeared on the 8th, and today's the 10th already, because it's past midnight now. So that was, I either did that on the 7th or the 8th. Anyway, that being said, so that's why this one became a priority for me. But the Pamela Harris one has this, the story has started to be written. I'm still in the process of doing that. I think I was hoping to get additional information from the Waterloo Regional Police to be able to kind of mirror that information together and try to make it flow. But I'm probably just going to have to proceed without it because I think it's important to get out there. So this brings me to the next thing I want to talk to you guys about. And I'm gonna try not to take too much time because I think I'm blathering on again, way too long, and I still need my snack. Okay, so I've been having a really hard time lately with the direction that I want to go with this podcast. And whether or not I want it to continue. And it's not because I don't love it, because I do. I do love getting stories out there. And I had to sit back and think, what part of it made me feel fulfilled in a way? Like I could be helping or doing something. And I think that lays in the cases, the cold cases, the cases that are open, the cases that haven't been solved, and the cases that have victims that need people to advocate for them. I know a lot of times cold cases in podcasts are not as desirable for some listeners as cases that have been solved, and a lot of that has to do with having an ending, and I understand that. And I think I was trying to incorporate some of that into the show, and to be honest, I kind of felt like I was taking advantage of somebody else's very, very sad situation. And it's one thing if it's a historical thing and there's a reason for it. Like it tells a story of how something changed within the communities or the law, or, you know, an interesting tidbit of history and the people are no longer living. And I can look at it that aspect, but, or a safety concern thing. I don't know. There are certain things that I kind of had to sit back and just really think about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. So this, for the rest of the year, I'll be focusing on unsolved cases. Once in a while, I might throw in a historical one for fun. And when I'm talking about historical, I'm talking about, you know, over 50 years old. Something where maybe 50, 60 years old or over. Something just to get an interesting historical aspect to it as well. But I wanted to tell you guys that probably be because if you've noticed, I think the last couple of months the episodes haven't been as on time as they probably should have been. So that's kind of what's going through my mind right now, and I just kind of made that decision not too long ago that I just want to focus on the unsolved. And again, I know that's not as favorable to some listeners, and I hope that you guys can understand that that's just kind of the feeling that I have when doing this, and it's important to me. And I hope it's important to you guys too. But that's pretty much it. I think I have talked way too much, and I didn't quite add anything to Mary's story. But take a look at those pictures, you guys. I gave you homework, okay? And I need you to go on any of the social medias, but if you're on Facebook already and you're part of the group, I want you to chat on there. I'm going to post the pictures. I want you guys to comment on it. Take a look. Let me know. It's good to share this information. Obviously, I'm not putting, if you're listening to this right as soon as I publish it, I'm sorry. I didn't put the pictures up yet, okay? Because it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning and I want my snack. And then I gotta go to bed because I gotta get up early to go to work tomorrow. And I have like a 5-page report to finish, which I'd rather do this, but you know, it is what it is. So guys, I'm gonna say goodnight to you. And usually I would have played a podcast, like promo of another podcast. I'm sorry I didn't get time to download it to attach it to this audio, but okay, I'm going to leave you on a note. You go listen to my friend CJ. Her podcast is called Crimes of the LGBTQ, or it's just LGBT. I think she put it in her title. Anyways, it's Beyond the Rainbow, Crimes of the LGBT. Host name is CJ. She is so awesome. The stories are very well researched. They're really put together very well. Very interesting. She is way more on the ball than I am. And it's like one of my favorite podcasts out there. Go take a listen. She's really good. Until you get my note again, and then you can listen to mine again. Okay? So that's everything, and I will talk to you guys, I'm going to say a week, because we got to get Pamela's story out there. So let's do it. Let's get Pamela's story out there. I'll talk to you guys. Have a good evening.